I'm working on the baffling again. I got the new felt for it. This is the old felt that I took off, and it was wasn't too bad here. It was still working, but it was getting kind of rough. But there's some spots on some of those that was pretty bad. So I decided to get all new felt for it. Well, I got my first piece on there, and that looks a whole lot better. Felt comes in rolls. I got it from Stoddard's in Anchorage, but they're a distributor for Univer, and I looked it up on Univer and saw what they had until I figured out the right stuff. It comes in 7-foot rolls, 72 inches, or 6-foot rolls, 72 inches. So I bought 2 rolls. You'd think they'd send enough in one roll to do the whole engine, but it's going to be awful close here. I'm glad I bought 2 rolls. Well, anyway, I'm getting to start at that and get that cleaned up and get this baffling ready to put on. I cleaned it up and painted it, but I didn't strip it and paint it. I just cleaned it up and painted it over the old paint, and where the new paint went on over the old paint, the solvents in it kind of wrinkled the old paint, but it looks better than it did. So yeah, that's what it looks like now with new felt on it. So that should be better. Like I said, the old felt was working. It just this is for this side here. It was getting pretty smooth along here, but that's fine as long as it seals up. But there's some places like here where it was getting chewed up pretty good. And the other side is the same way. It's got some pot spots on there where it's getting chewed up. But this front, where's that front pieces here? The front pieces here were pretty bad. Both of them. One side was worse than the other. This one was all chewed through, and somebody gummed it all up with silicone to seal it up, but this side wasn't much better. But then this one side here, I extended that baffle out a little ways, so we'll be able to put felt out on the baffle farther and close that in a little bit more. So I got to get something to cut this off, and probably have to do a finish trim on it once I get it mounted up on the engine. But anyway, that's the first one. Well, 72 inches was just enough to do the 2 side baffles, both sides, and the 2 front baffles. So I'm glad now that I ordered 2 of those felts. Man, you'd think it'd come long enough for the whole engine. I was always taught you give more than what you are asked for, not less. But anyway, the 2 side panels and the 2 front panels baffles are done sections, so I've still got to do the 2 rear baffles. I put the baffling on, got it all on except for the left rear piece. I'm kind of waiting for the new oil cooler to come so I can mount that up on there before I put it on the engine. It looks a whole lot better than it did before with the new felt on everything and a little bit of paint on it and stuff like that. It looks pretty good. Well, I took some corrosion inhibitor. This stuff right here, that's CRC. There's other different brands of it. And I sprayed the crankcase halves down, the crankcase down with it, the tops of the cylinder heads before I put the baffling on, where the baffling mounts. It's going to smoke like a son of a gun when I start that engine up and it gets warmed up. With some of it got on the actual cylinder fins and stuff like that. But I'm going to try to keep everything from getting corrosion on it. The other one, for being 20 years out here in the weather, 22 years out in the weather, it wasn't too bad, but it still had some rusty bolts and threads on it and stuff like that. But anyway, this should keep it good for a couple of years anyhow. So anyway, the baffling is on there. That's good. And things are sprayed down. I'm going to wait for that stuff to flash off real good, and then I'm going to go around that right rear baffle and put some RTV on there to kind of fill in some of those gaps and stuff that are there. Today's Friday. Hopefully Monday, that's when it's projected to have that oil cooler. I was hoping it'd show up sooner, but I keep looking at the tracking on it, and the tracking says it's in the system, and they're not in any hurry to get it, so they must have shipped it by ground or something. Anyway, it's supposed to be here Monday, and once we get that, then I can finish putting that baffling together on there and get that oil cooler put together. I decided to go ahead and put that left rear baffle on there too, I can put that oil cooler on there while it's mounted up just as well as I can. Well, maybe not quite as easy as I could if it was off, but it's not that difficult. The main thing is just reaching down in through here to get the nuts on these bolts that go right here. It attaches here to this bracket on the back, and then I made up a bracket right down here, or it's just a support actually. It's just a piece of steel, stainless steel stock. But I've got that in there, and that's bolted into a spare hole that goes through the flange on the back of the engine and into the baffling, and that really stiffens that up. And then I've got another flange here, another support here that'll go over here onto another bolt into the accessory case, and it goes over and attaches right there. That's where the oil cooler attaches, is right there, and that add a little bit more rigidity to that, a little bit more strength to that. So, well, I'm starting to lay out the run of the spark plug leads. So we've got the top leads over here on the left bank come out of the right mag, and then the bottom ones on the right mag go down to the bottom right cylinders. Top ones out of the left mag go over to the right top two cylinders, and then the bottom ones here go over here to the left side on the bottom. So I'm just kind of getting those laid out. I'm going to get some 8L clamps, and I'll probably run these like this so they're out of the way, and run these right here, put some clamps right there across these two. I tried to get that to go over on the other side of that accessory pad right there, but it's just not long enough to reach. But I can bring it back this way, and that way it's out of the way of the oil filter when the oil filter goes on here round back of the breather tube. And then this will be a hose comes off of here, goes to the oil cooler. This one will go like that, down around like that. And we got the grommets that go in here where these top cables go through the baffling. We got a couple of places on the baffling to seal up with RTV. There's a little gap right down in there where the side, the back baffling meets the side baffling. And then there's gaps underneath here and around that baffling there. Now this side's not too bad. The other side's got some humongous gaps in it. I'll see if I can seal those up. Front all looks really good. This is that extra piece that I riveted on there to that right front baffling where that alternator goes. All nice fresh felt on there. That'll be pretty nice. It should keep that engine nice and cool. Been working on running these spark plug cables here now. I've got the ones on the left side done. This is the lower ones here. You can see they're actually marked on there. That one says B2 for bottom 2, and this one is B4. And then we got the top ones coming through here. Oh, this is what I've done. I've taken some tie wraps and tied those together. And then this one here, out of this mag, goes over to fire the top two cylinders on the right side. So I ran it through, put an 8L clamp in there. Another one here, another one here, to get those up out of the way. Usually they're back over here and kind of in the way of everything, so hopefully that will get them back up out of the way. And then I did the same thing on the right mag going to the top. Got them tie wrapped here so they stay together. Come up through an 8L clamp here underneath this blast tube, and that'll go over the engine mount and in through this grommet here. Well, I've still got to do the bottom one on the right side. I'm thinking that looks pretty good. This one will be here. Probably have to do a little bit with it because it's got a, let's see here, goes over the top of that other engine mount, that lower engine mount. So that'll be all right. That goes down under there. Okay. Well, I've got just about as much done on that engine as I can get until I get that oil cooler here. I got the baffling all put on. I got the spark plug leads run out of the magnetos. We got the lower ones there all set up. And then the upper ones, again, I run them up right behind that engine, mounted onto the accessory case on that, and get some up out of the way for doing other things later. Come off that right magneto and go over here to the number 1 and number 3 cylinder. They're all set up, except I come around this corner a little bit here, and I put a little bit of RTV on that corner so that it doesn't abrade into those. So I've got this clamp right here. I'll turn that down so that that wire goes around that corner a little better after this RTV cures up. And then I put the new EGT probe in here, and I run it right along with these wires. This hooks up to the exhaust stack that comes off the number 3 cylinder. So that's tied in with those wires back up here to the magneto, and then it'll go over to the firewall and in through the left side of the firewall and hook up into the EGT probe. And I took a whole bunch of RTV and sealed up all the gaps and stuff that I could get to in this baffling. Every place it looked like we might get a little bit of air leak on it. Over there, around where that baffling attaches to those cylinders, and any place there was a fold or any place there was a seam that looked like there was air leaking through it, I got it pretty well dummied up there. Back here against this back, and then as you go down around here, there's some big gaps in here and that this side that I got. And the only way to get to those is when it's now, before I put that dipstick in. So anyway, that should help for the cooling. Again, the same thing over here on this side. Got most of it locked up. Anyway, I'm done with that now until I get the oil cooler to mount it on, and then I can put the engine on the airplane.